Welcome to the Traveling Professors. I'm Professor Bob.
And I'm Professor Sherry.
And together we are
the Traveling Professors.
Today's show is called the Florentine Faux, and it's basically two things. One is a tour of the Palazzo Vecchio and the apartments of Eleonora of Toledo, Cosimo de' Medici's wife, and a discussion about one of the most embarrassing things that I've ever done on vacation. Now, sometimes, you go on vacation and things just happen. For example, when Sherry and I first went on our first cruise, we came back from having dinner. Sherry got ready to go to bed, and so she brushed her teeth, and then I hear this screeching out of the bathroom, and what had happened is the maid had come in and taken all of the cosmetics and all of the equipment and moved it around. And so what she thought was toothpaste turned out to be preparation H. So that was a little troublesome. We had a big laugh over that. And then later on in the cruise, I went down later on in the evening to sneak some food up from the buffet and didn't realize it until I took a bite of it later on in the evening. I'd brought all the wax fruit up from a bowl rather than real fruit. Those are just little simple things. What's going to happen here is almost a disaster that didn't happen. So I hope you enjoy that. My little faux pas in Florence will occur inside this wonderful building, the Palazzo Vecchio. Now, Sherry and I, this is in 2015. That was the year we decided to take a tour of Italy. And we're in Florence for a week. So the first night we are in Florence, we head to the Palazzo Vecchio. Now, it was designed by Adolfo di Cambio, and it was built in 1294 as a palace fortress for the priors. The tower was added in 310, 94 meters high, but that's rising from the gallery. In 1343 to 1592, there were modifications and additions, both inside and outside, that were added by the architects Crenata, Vasari, and Buontalenti. And of course, this is where Cosimo de' Medici comes in, and that is, he's going to move in at the age of 18 in 1537. The clock that you see will be added a little bit later. So we're going to eventually go to the apartments, but we'll do that on a second day. All we did the first evening is wander around Florence, but we spent some time here in this particular area and went in on the lower floor. So we walked around the exterior, and here's the beautiful statue of Cosimo, and here's the entrance with the copy of the David. And you look straight up, and at the very top, that's actually part of the prison where Savonarola stayed and several Medicis over the years. The clock, as I said before, was added later. Actually, it's added in 1667. So we went inside the courtyard. That's all we really did in this particular building. And this is a spectacular courtyard. It was designed by Michelozzo, and the little statue that you'll see a little later is by Petruchio, the little Puto. But you come in here and you see the magnificent columns and you see the fountain, and then you look straight up and see the open area. It's pretty spectacular. We had a very good evening there, and it is important to point out one thing, and that is the clothing that Sherry is wearing, because what Sherry's wearing will play a great big part in my error. A couple of days later, Sherry and I come back to do the full tour. Of course, you walk into the main area, which is the main hall, the Salon de Cinquecento. Well, it's actually the Medici. We're going to use this as a ballroom and for other purposes. But after the Medici were removed for the second time, it housed the assembly. And today it still is the area where the city does most of its business. So you can go up to the dais and you can see all the chairs, and you'd have the people of running the business here. Actually, all the palaces of the Medici have some business function for Florence. And then it's fun to look back and from the front get the idea of what it looks like when the people come in to talk about what's going to take place in the government. But the whole area is surrounded with allegorical paintings that illustrate the triumphal return of Grand Duke Cosimo I, as well as the possessions of the Medici and the story of the conquest of Pisa and other places. And you'll see that all over the walls. If you've seen the movie The Inferno, The ceiling, there's one scene where one of the people falls through the ceiling, and quite a bit of it is actually filmed in Florence. It's just magnificent. And of course, this was actually the assembly for Italy when it was first unified for a couple of years. That view at the very beginning they have some of the seats that actually were part of the original parliament. After visiting the Medici rooms on the second floor, it's time to go upstairs to the main apartments, particularly the apartments of Eleanor of Toledo. It's Cosimo de' Medici's wife, a fantastic lady. Her full name was Donna Leonor Alvarez de Toledo y Osorio. She was born on January the 11th, 1519, and died December the 17th, 1562. Dies of malaria. It's an early portrait of her, and here is the portrait of her husband, Cosimo, and this is a very well-known portrait of her later in life. She had 11 children. 5 sons and 3 daughters actually survived to become adults, and she's extremely important for that reason because it guaranteed the survival of the Medici family. However, she was extremely wealthy, an incredible organizer, and quite frankly, she oversaw the trade of the Medici in wheat, silk, and other luxury fabrics, and when Cosimo wasn't in town, she ran the Duchy of Florence. So she is spectacular. She bought all sorts of property, including the Palazzo Pitti, which was the future residence of the Medici, the Pitti Palace. What you see here is Eleanor's dress that is a reproduction of the dress that she has on in the famous painting. The main room as you come in, the Camera Verde, or the green room, is where Eleonora would supervise the daily life of the palace, manage her assets, and do other financial activities. And there are all sorts of rooms that jut off of one another, so it does become kind of a maze. And you can see the beautiful green on the wall, which was her favorite color, and then you have a variety of portraits and paintings that are all over the ceiling. It's just spectacular. Then you go into the chapel, and the chapel was built by walling off part of an existing room. It was done in 1539 and 1540, and the artwork is done by her favorite artist, Bronzio. The stories that you find on the walls are about the life of Moses. Now, the altarpiece is a depiction of the deposition of Christ. Now, if you go in, you see the little kneeler. She was a very devout Catholic, extremely devout Catholic, so she prayed frequently, and this made it easy for her to come in and pray whenever she felt like it. But the painting that you see today is the second painting of the deposition of Christ. The first one was given to the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, Charles V, by Cosimo. So they had a commission, Bronzio, to paint a second version. And if you notice at the ceiling, you look up at the ceiling, you see the 3 faces in the center, representing the Trinity. And then the scene of Moses and the Israelites. So it's a very, very wonderful, beautiful, small little chapel. And this is where things went wrong. Initially, Sherry and I were just about the only people other than the guards in the various rooms. And so she's taking pictures and I'm taking pictures, and we very rarely are in the same room at the same time unless it's really, really large. We kind of coordinate that. And when you're shooting pictures at the ceilings, and in Renaissance buildings, or if you're at Versailles or other palaces, the ceilings are stunning. And it's really easy to not pay any attention to what's going on. And after I went out of the chapel, I lost track of where Sherry was as we headed to some of the other rooms. Moving on into the other apartments, began to continue to take some pictures. Now, the first room that I entered was known as the Sabine Hercilia room, which represents the Sabine woman who led the other Sabine women to stop the Romans and the Sabines from fighting each other. Eleonora had all of the rooms decorated with examples of women of the past. So that was this room. The next room has Queen Esther on the top of it and the Persian king. And then my favorite, which is the Penelope room, where she is weaving and waiting for Odysseus to return. Now this room has a beautiful portrait of the Madonna and Child by Botticelli. So you have to look at that. And it's at that point that I thought that I recognized Sherry. Sometimes what we'll do is come up and tap her on the rump and, put my hands on her waist. So I was heading over that direction, and she went into the next room, which was Galderada's room. This is a woman of Florence who refused to kiss the Holy Roman Emperor Otto IV to preserve her purity and integrity. And at that point, as I head towards what I thought thought was Sherry, I realized at the very last minute it wasn't. And I'll let Sherry tell you the rest.
Hi, fellow travelers. This is Professor Sherry here. And I'm going to tell you a little story of how things can really get messed up. Well, as you look at this picture, you can tell that, well, it's not very crowded where we are. But somehow or the other, Bob managed to lose me in this building. So as he's looking for me, he looks around and, well, to backtrack, you know how all American tourists look just the same. All the women are 5'4". They have short red hair. They wear glasses. They have crossbody bags for their purse. They have on denim pants and their early morning jacket tied around their waist. And like men being men, they're not always focused on the finer details of the situation. So to jump back ahead, remember, I'm lost to Bob, and he's looking for me. So as I'm wandering around looking at these 14,000 paintings of the trip, here comes Bob with a funny look on his face and a story to tell me. And he says, almost a quote, I almost patted another woman on the bottom. She looks just like you. Nice excuse, right, for bottom patting the wrong person? Well, never being one to keep a good story to myself, I approach the other woman, who indeed does look very similar to me, as you can see from the picture, but I am the real Professor Packet, and I shared this story with her. We had a great laugh over it, and here's a picture of us together, so you can tell that we had fun with it and that we very much do indeed look similar to each other. I'm happy to report that Bob has kept his bottom padding to the right bottom since then, as far as I know. But keep an eye on him if you ever travel with him.
We all had a good laugh, and I learned a lesson to be more careful whose bottom I'm about to pat and to keep track of where Sherry is at almost all times. After this, we exited the palace, and as we headed towards our next stop, which was the Uffizi Gallery, you could see this connection between two buildings. This was constructed by Vasari. It's a corridor. It's actually called the Vasari Corridor, and it's an elevated passage that linked the Palazzo Vecchio with the Palazzo Pitti, the Uffizi, Ponte Vecchio, and the Church of Santa Felicia. This was accessed from Eleonora's Camera Verde green room suite of rooms so that she could move into her offices. So it's off to the Uffizi we go. Sherry and I hope you enjoyed the tour. Please come by our YouTube channel at Bob Packet on YouTube. It should be History According to Bob, but it comes up as Bob Packet. That's the easiest way to get to it. And please subscribe and leave some comments. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe, give a comment, and if you like history, please come by historyaccordingtobob.com website, where I do 6 podcasts a week on different topics in history, and there's all sorts of CDs and other things that you can see. So thank you very much.